Welcome to the Godly Business Podcast, where entrepreneurs learn the fundamentals of sales. Today, I have the great honor of meeting my new friend, Michelle Francois, who decided to grace my podcast with her presence. She is an awesome leader, in my opinion. And I think you will learn a lot from her, especially as you grow in your business. So, Michelle, thank you for coming. I wanted you to kind of go ahead and introduce yourself, let us know what you're all about, a little bit more about you.
Thank you for having me here. I think this is so awesome. This is a dope experience for, either existing entrepreneurs or future entrepreneurs. And I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you.
So a little bit about me. Everybody says that anyone that's born and raised in New York has to say they're from New York. So yes, I'm originally from New York City, Brooklyn specifically.
You gotta
Um,
represent, huh?
you can't leave that out of any conversation. So I've heard that we all say we're from New York. But right now, of course, I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and I've been here for about 7 years. And a little bit about my background. I went to school in New York City. I went to college at Brooklyn College. I have a degree in business, a bachelor's degree in business management, as well as a second major in psychology. A lot of my work experience has been in banking. I've worked for several banking institutions from the retail side in terms of front facing with clients, and as well as working right now I work on the operations side in terms of the run the bank type of initiatives, right? um, I've also worked for a nonprofit in New York City where I was a financial coach, a financial counselor.
Oh, it's doing it again. It
No,
broke out.
that was my phone. It was I had set an alarm, forgot to
Oh,
turn it
okay.
off. Okay, so I was a financial counselor for New York City, one of uh, funded through New York City, through a nonprofit. And what I did is I helped people with budgeting,
Oh, yeah.
credit, savings, and debt. Those are the four areas that we focused on. And that was actually a really great experience because I did also help entrepreneurs there, not
I
just
bet.
yeah, not just not just individuals, but I also help people who were starting their own business and help them make the ties between understanding what it takes to the different skill sets that it takes to both manage your personal finances. It's the same thing when you're managing your business finances and when you're starting up as an
Absolutely.
entrepreneur. So that was a great experience. So I did that, and then I started working in operations in terms of the institution that I work with now. So my main responsibilities is a project manager, and I do work on regulatory change projects. And what we do is we implement any changes that would be, I guess, delivered through any of the regulators, because of course this is banking, and we all know that the banking industry is highly regulated.
Yeah.
As those changes come are shared with us from the regulators, then we put through a project plan to make sure that it's fully implemented front to back. So that can involve any, like, the full array of the entire business, and the entire bank would be involved in those changes. So it touches every area. Um, and Yeah, so that's pretty much what I do. A little bit about my background. Did I say I was from Brooklyn? I don't know if I
Yes, you did.
did.
Just so y'all know, if you didn't know, she's from Brooklyn. Okay. That's awesome. And I think it's super, super interesting. And the fact that you were in finance, I mean, still are in finance, right? But that is something that I feel like people miss, especially as new entrepreneurs. If the Bible also says that too, right? If you can't handle a little bit, it's going to be hard for you to handle a lot. And I think if you can't budget on your personal life, that also is going to translate on the business side. And that can be very, very dangerous when you have to, especially depending on how big you get, and if you don't know how to hire the proper person, the proper people. And even with that, you still need to know how to budget. You still need to know how to manage debt, and that's huge, the managing debt part. I
Yeah.
always recommend for newer business owners to try their best to avoid debt, you
Mm-hmm,
know
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and the reason is, and you tell me, because obviously you were in that and advising them, but the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I do that is because you are taking a risk, right? When you start the business, you don't know if it will be successful,
That's true.
and you still will owe whatever it is that you took out. And so for me, I know like social media are like big on like, oh yeah, leave your 9 to 5 and jump and start a business. I'm like, keep your 9 to 5 and do your business at the same time.
Yeah.
And once your business grows enough to cover what you make in your W-2,
Mm-hmm.
then you can make the jump, because that debt, you still got to pay it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Well, the way I look at debt is I think that I want to choose the right words here. So think that the I think that the societal view, right? As a society, we try to tell everyone that debt is bad, debt is bad. But there's a difference between good debt and bad debt, right? So if you go into debt in order to have something that's going to be income producing, right? Then that's good debt, right? But if your debt is just a sunken cost where it's just something of use, where it doesn't, let's just say like you buy a $10,000 watch, right? Not to say that that's a bad debt. If you could afford it, you could afford it, right? But
Hello?
yeah, sorry. Let me see if I can turn off. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you still.
Okay. Give me a sec. I don't know why. 2 seconds, 2 seconds.
Good. The alarms, I have like 1,600 of them too. So,
Yeah. If I don't set an alarm, I won't remember to do anything.
girl, in college, I had to put alarms just to remind myself to eat. That's how bad it was.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. So,
So yeah, let's think about good debt from a perspective of good debt and bad debt, right? So good debt is going to be something that's going to lead to future returns, right?
mhm.
Bad debt is a sunken cost, meaning like you get the material value of whatever you get it, and you paid what it is. You have that debt, you're paying it off, or whatever the case may be, but that item is either diminishing in value over time, or there's no resale value. There's no, it's just
Yeah,
you own this thing.
it's a liability.
It's a
It's just a
liability,
liability. Yeah.
exactly. So that's how I try to look at things in terms of debt. I don't always tell people that debt is a bad thing. Sometimes you need debt in order for you to scale up to the next level.
Not to leverage it.
Yes.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Are you leveraging the debt? If you're not leveraging the debt, and so the thing I caution people about, and I don't necessarily say, I don't think, just like I don't think money is neither good nor bad, right? It's a tool. It's just how you use it. Debt is neither good or bad, right? So if I borrow $5,000 from you and I go and buy a car and flip it and sell it for $7,000, and I give you back your 5,000, I made $2,000,
Exactly.
right? So that to me is me leveraging that tool, which is your money, right? What they call other people money. I use your money, bought the car, pay you the 5,000 plus interest, right? Let's say it's 55,000. I mean, 5,500, and now I make 1,500. So that's how you're supposed to use debt and in the business aspect. But the thing is, what I find that people do is they would take the 5,000, right? And then they would go and buy the car, and then let's say they did flip it and everything like that. Instead of trying to, let's say, pay you off right away, um they would take that money and maybe reinvest the Now, there's nothing wrong if they're reinvesting that $7,000, and
Mm-hmm.
then okay, now I'm taking that 7,000. I'm gonna buy me a $10,000 car, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then with that $10,000 car, now I'm making an extra. Um, you know, I buy the car for 7,000. I made 10,000. I make an extra 3,000. But you also have to remember, you still owe Michelle $5,000.
Exactly. So to me,
So
yeah, that's character, right?
exactly,
That's less of a like the thing that you do, that's a part of your character. So I think that one thing that we have to remember is that like our character follows us everywhere we go,
mm-hmm.
right? And it's
Wherever you are, there you are.
exactly, it's like your personal brand. So if you borrow $5,000 from someone and you have an agreement that X amount of money is going to be paid back at a certain date, then honor your word, because that's part of your character. Because for some people, lending you the 5,000 could be nothing for them, but you'll never see another dime from them ever again.
Exactly.
You know,
And
so
not only that too,
mhm.
like when you don't want to, um as Haitian, this is big in our culture, like your name means a lot,
Your
right?
personal brand, yeah.
Your personal brand. And I know this, like the whole concept of personal brand is kind of like new, but like, and I didn't know it was not just in Haitian culture, but in other culture too. Like if somebody approaches my father to marry me,
Mm-hmm.
right, and their family's name is trash,
Mm-hmm.
like they will not. My dad would be like, no, you can't marry her because your family, your great grandfather was a thief, and now your
Yeah.
whole family's known as a thief. So therefore, you can't marry my daughter because I don't want her to, be associated with that. So it's like, your name means a lot. And when you start a business too, like you said, if you don't have character or integrity, like no one wants to do business with you. And I think
Mm-hmm.
also that's one of the things that when it comes to the sales conversation, which is what I'm in, is there's a warped view of what sales is because they think every salesperson don't have integrity. I think that's the biggest thing that people fear when it comes to sales, is that someone is trying to take advantage of them, and people have devalued the brand, I guess you would say, of
Yeah.
what selling is, because it's just so many people lack of integrity have just destroyed that what do you call it, that business or that trade skill.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate because I think that we are in a consumeristic society. So, and then we also are in a society where we value status
Mm-hmm.
more than anything
Yep.
else. Like a lot of things are based on status. And I don't think that, to me, sales is not a bad thing. It's like it's a means to an end for anything, right?
It's the
Because
skills.
it's a skill, exactly, right? And we all, honestly, we take part in that, in the sales industry every single day.
Yep.
It just may be on a minor scale for most of us, but we're a part of that every single day. When you walk into a store and you buy a water for $1, that's a sales transaction.
Yeah.
There may not have been any specific marketing towards you or anything like that, but it was a need that you needed fulfilled. And this person is a salesperson and they sold you that bottle of water. Right. And that's how I try to look at sales in terms of that. And I think when it comes to those people who just lack integrity, who are in the industry of sales or whatever, we have intuition. We are all born with it, right? I I think um what it is in terms of just like being able to say, is this for me or is this not for me? If you're going into a deal with someone or whatever the case may be. And I feel like, sometimes salespeople could be very pressuring.
Well, I think
Towards,
that's what
yeah.
people think what sales is. And that's what, like, one of my
Mm-hmm.
biggest message for entrepreneurs specifically, because what I
Mm-hmm.
find is because now there's such a negative view around what sales is because of the sleazy car salesman mentality,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's the first thing people think of. So because of that negative view and that negative experience, people shun away from the sales.
Mm-hmm.
So now here you are, you've become a consultant, you a business owner, right? And you're trying to have a conversation with a prospect, but because for you sales is negative, right? Sales is pressure, whatever, you now become afraid to ask for the sale, to ask for the close. So
Yeah.
therefore, because of that, all of a sudden you like, oh, um, well, you start fidgeting, your voice
Mm-hmm.
tone change and all of those things. So this is why I'm like big on, hey, your fear of sales and your concept of what sales is wrong. And you
Yeah.
have to readdress what sales is. A lot of people unfortunately has dragged that skills, that industry,
Mm-hmm.
because of how it's portrayed on TV, because of how it's portrayed as a technique. People don't like the idea of like, you using techniques on me. Well, guess what? So does marketing. Marketing
Yeah.
is what comes before the sell, right? So marketing is using psychology, the colors of McDonald's and Burger King
Yeah.
and Chick-fil-A are not by happenstance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the
Yes. Yes.
details go into marketing in order for you to purchase. So all of those things, we accept those cells in that respect, but not so much when I'm having a conversation with you and letting you know, hey, you should hire me to be your consultant. You know what I mean? That's
Mm-hmm.
when then as a business person, you become fearful and you can't ask for the sale because all of your life, all of what TV showed, all of the conversation is that, hey, sales is bad. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so they become fearful of that. So, but yeah, it
So
comes back to, oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was gonna say it's just about like changing the narrative in your mind, and I don't have a strong sales background, but what I do remember in terms of sales is we're not like 9 times out of 10. Yes, you're selling a product or a service, right? But you're not necessarily selling the product, you're selling the value add to the customer. Like what
Exactly.
what value is this to you? And that's where you make your sale. So if you change the narrative, if you change your mindset on what sales is, you're able to sell them on the value to them. McDonald's, the value is not the food. The food is, I don't want to say that. Okay. It's they're not selling you food at McDonald's. They're selling you an experience.
Yeah.
They're selling you they're selling you taste, and they're selling you they're giving
Convenience.
you convenience. Exactly. They're selling you convenience, and they're giving you back your time to do whatever you got to do. Hence why it's called fast food, right?
Yeah.
So it's changing the narrative. Like your McDonald's is not in the business of selling hamburgers. They really aren't. They're
No.
selling you convenience. They're selling you an experience. They're selling you, the logo that you're walking around with, that you are part of this culture who also eats McDonald's,
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah, so and that's the mindset that I think that people need to have when it comes to sales, because like I said, sales is a part of our every,
But
like,
we all are salesmen.
we're all salesmen, and we're all
We
consumers.
we all are salesmen. And the fact that, like, okay, let's say you have this like really dope party that's coming up, right? And I'm like, I don't want to go. And you're like, girl, listen, there's gonna be this person there. We're gonna do this, and that. And
Hmm.
then you selling me the value of me going to this event.
Exactly.
Guess what? You just sold me. That's what sales is. And so that's one of my biggest thing is like reframing to you know business owners and
Hmm.
entrepreneurs what sales is, so they don't get to um that conversation and then just freeze because like they
Yeah.
have this negative view of it. But the other thing that I thought was really interesting that you do is the project management, because we could talk about that in so many different aspects, like being in real estate. um I know, like, whew, it's a lot when it comes to like the different aspect that you have to control and manage. So from your standpoint, I know it's slightly different, but I want to learn a little bit more on like what are some things when, let's say, you're going now from um and you don't have to approach it from this perspective. You could approach it from a different perspective, but I'm thinking like,
Mhm.
okay, now you going from a solopreneur, right, to now your business have grown, you've been blessed, and now have to expand, right? Maybe you have to hire 5 or 6 more people, and this is what you have to do. Like, how would you? What are the things that you would say
Oh,
are
okay.
the main things that someone needs to think about when it comes to like project management or expanding or like
Mhm, mhm.
rolling out a different product and stuff like that?
So I would say first, um, in terms of scaling your business up and expanding, right? Um, One, you have to think about doing this in an organized way, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I say do it in an organized way is because anything that you think couldn't happen will happen, right?
And that is
And
true.
like if you didn't think it was gonna go wrong, it's gonna go wrong. And not wrong in a sense of like it's detrimental. It's just like, oh, I thought that this was gonna be a path to green, but no, it's a path to red. Okay, well, how do I move past that? How do I deal with that and then move and keep going towards the goal, right? So the first thing is being organized. And honestly, the easiest way I still tell people is like I checklist my whole life. Like before before I walk out the door, right? It's like I always say this because it's my internal thing to remember to grab everything, right? But it was there was a TV show called Jersey Shore, and they used to always say gym, tan, laundry, right? That was their thing for the day. That's all they did was go to the gym, they tan, and then they did laundry, right? So before I walk before I walk out the door, I go gym, tan, laundry, purse, keys, phone. Like that's my gym. I'm dead serious. That's my gym tan line. That's my checklist to
Yeah.
walk out the door, right? Um, and then anything else ancillary or whatever the case may be, I'm organized enough to know that it's not part of my gym tan laundry. So if I need to carry something out the door with me, it's in front of the door before I walk out.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's the level of organization, is to have the foresight to know that I need to make sure that I plan for the unexpected. And you can't really plan for the unexpected, but you can have it worked into your plan where, like, if something unexpected happens, I have a way of pivoting or whatever the case may be. So that's the first thing. It's like organization.
Yeah.
Checklist, write things down, literally check them off as they get completed, right? Then you have to also think about like, who are your stakeholders, right? In a project, your stakeholders would be like anyone that's involved in either that's responsible for a task or a deliverable, right? And what are their core like what do they contribute to the project, right? So like if you're hiring new employees, that's now your staff. Are you able to now scale the business up and also manage a staff, or do you need to now hire a manager,
Yeah.
right?
So I'm gonna write
Or
these things down. Hold up. No, just kidding. Go ahead.
like just think about it, like you're only one person,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's where it comes from, like being able to identify people who are going to replace you in areas, and that's called delegating tasks to people who are capable of replacing you in areas where you may not be available anymore. That's very important. And you have to be able to trust that that person has the decision making faculties to be able to make the best decision on your behalf or on the behalf of the business.
Oh, when you mentioned that, the first thing that came to mind was a book that I read years ago, 4 Hour Work Week.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he said is that, he hired different people to do the task, but that was one of the factors that he didn't take into consideration, decision making. So every single time they needed to do something, they had to call him and be like, hey, can we do this? Hey, what's this?
Yeah.
So eventually he would just like, hey, anything like let's say it's refund, anything above at 5,000, you're good to go. You can make that decision. Anything over 5,000, then you get me involved, right? So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because he didn't give them that power to make the decisions, he was still there. So it was like there was no point of you hiring these people because they're still contacting you to make the final decision. So empowering
Exactly.
them and giving them that ability to make the decision is huge. So I'm glad that you touched on that.
Yeah, and that's very important. You want to make sure that you have people in place that can make the best decision and or know when to consult you if they're not able to make that decision, right? Because that's two different things, because you can empower someone and then empower them to, tear your business down, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have, and that's where a big part of project management is communication. Like, you literally have to have like a communication plan, and that decision that entrepreneur had that you mentioned, his communication plan was, okay, above 5,000, you contact me, right? That was part of his plan, because it's like, I don't need to be bothered with the minutia of anything less than that.
Yeah.
So, but it's also like being able to have people who know when to communicate with you. Some people, it's like, oh, I don't want to bother. No. You not saying anything could have ripple effects
Exactly.
down the line, right? Because one thing I tell people, or maybe I should just talk about myself, right? A big part of how I work is like, if this, then that, right? So if I do this, then what happens, right? What are the impacts of me either saying something or not saying something? And that's the type of analysis that I do in terms of communication, in terms of like my impact on the project. Communication is like, if I don't tell the key stakeholders things that they need to know in order for them to make decisions, that impacts my project.
Yep. And I think
Okay?
that's huge too. Like looking at it from a real estate and designer perspective, right? Like you
Mhm.
didn't give the proper instruction on how you wanted the tile laid. You just give him the tile and say, "Hey, lay the tile," and then he goes and lay the tile. Then you come back and be like, "Wait, I wanted it this way." Well, you didn't communicate that really
Yes,
well.
exactly.
So
Exactly. So communication is key, and making sure that you have the information delivered. And then also, it's like, is it delivered in a way that's palatable to the person that's receiving it as well, right? So a huge part of like what I do day to day is like, we get these, like, maybe sometimes, I don't even know how many pages. Sometimes it could be like 15 pages. And I know that somebody who's on the business side is not going to stop and read 15 pages of anything.
mhm.
Okay? So I have to read the 15 pages, and then I have to be able to have the foresight to know, okay, this is necessary information, and then this is unneeded.
Fluff.
They have the whole document. If they want to read it, that's their business. But I know that these are the key points that I need to make sure that they understand, that this is what is critical. It's critical to the mission that we have, right? So, and that in itself is a skill. It was a skill that I had to develop over time, because I realized, like, I'm sharing information, but it's not palatable to my audience.
Yeah.
I have a meeting and I'm like, well, I shared the document with you all. It's like, there's 30 people in the meeting, not one single person read it. It's just like, okay. So these are the kind of things that you have to decide now. And then maybe I'm not the person to do that. So then that might be a task that I have to delegate to someone else that's able to take the time. So it's just like, as a business owner, you have to be able to recognize where, like, what are the assets, like, who is an asset to your organization, and what are their skill sets that are going to be an asset
Oh
to
my
your,
God.
right? Because there's only two things that people are, right? They're all resources, right? But they're either an
Mhm.
asset or they're a liability, and that's it. And that's how you have to look at every single person that's involved in your business. Like, are they adding value or are they taking away value?
So it's funny that you kind of mentioned what are the assets. So one of the podcasts that I will be talking about is, and expanding your business is to do a skill assessment,
Mm-hmm.
so you know what everyone can do, right? So like let's say you hired me for, I don't know, uh consulting and sales, because that's what I do in sales structure. But you may not also know that hey, I'm really good at um, project management, right? Those are
Exactly.
two different things. But by doing an assessment, right, you know, okay, if I need this, do I necessarily need to hire someone else, or can I now have this person also do both of those aspects? Now, it's a lot, right?
Exactly.
But it's
Mhm.
also, I know this person can do this job. And then you can also know, okay, this person is really weak at this point, but they have potential that I can train them to replace this person. So, like, one of the things that my husband is dealing at his job right now is he has this lady, like, she's kind of like the gatekeeper, right? Everything comes through her. And if she's not there, almost like operation is not going
Yeah.
until he comes back. And I'm like, and he's like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. So he's trying to go to his boss and explain, like, this is
Mhm.
an issue that
She's
needs to be
bottleneck.
addressed. Yeah, she's bottlenecking it. And
Yeah.
then so he's starting to learn and write a manual to where, okay, next person that comes in, they should be able to plug and play,
Mhm.
right? Certain rules should be, certain things should be plug and play. Now there are certain like you said, like, not knowledge and things that you have to hire specifically for, but there are other things that, like, okay, somebody needs to know how to operate this software, not just this person,
Yeah.
especially if it's like multiple things that this is a everyday thing. Like, at least three people in the building should know how to operate the software, because God forbid this person dies. Now what are we gonna do?
She's a key man risk. That's what that is. That and you have to think about that like in your business as well. Do you have key man risk? So a key man is the one person that knows how to do, like, it's the one person that knows that this one light switch in the back of the building is the switch that turns on all the lights in the entire building.
Yeah.
You understand? Like that's a key man risk, because if that person don't show up today, we have no lights. Like that's the level of like you have to think about it. So I agree, your husband is on the right path to make sure that all of the things that should be able to be transferable skills are documented, so that anyone can walk in off the street and be able to just pick that up and take care of that. It,
Exactly.
you don't have to have expertise in this in order for you to for it to get done, right? Yeah, so that matters a lot, and being able to identify that you have that level of risk is that's what your husband identified. Like, she can't be the bottleneck of information, she can't be the bottleneck of operation, she can't be the bottleneck of all tasks that need to be completed to get things done, because like you said, if she dies tomorrow, what happens? does
Exactly.
does the business go under?
I'm sure they have enough money to figure it out, but at the same time, I'm just like, that is something that I don't think like the average business owner is thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't have your whole life. I was talking to a friend of mine who pretty much, he was trying to help someone else, so he asked me what I think they need to do. And after he told me the story, I'm like, he needs to fire his secretary. And he's like, yo, that's what I told him. And I'm like, yeah, he needs to fire his secretary. Because there's just a bunch of things that are not accounted for, but also, like, you, the same example, she's bottlenecking, and she has contact, she keeps the log. Like, this person is like 50 years old, which is still young, and
Mm-hmm.
they do everything manually. When I say manually, I mean like paper pen,
Yeah.
paper pen. And I'm like, that's where he keeps his clients log
No.
and stuff, and like when to pay the clients, how much, like, investors, right? How to reimburse investors and stuff. And I'm like, baby, that no. And then
You're
she
doing a
has all that
disservice.
information. But I'm like, so if she miscalculate and doesn't pay the correct amount for XYZ for so long, it's
Mm-hmm.
still on your head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah,
Oh,
it's just how do you then, with all of this, and delegate and things like that, make sure you're managing proper oversight without micromanaging, because that's another
exactly.
aspect.
Exactly. Yeah. And as a project manager, you are inherently a micromanager, but but that's just the nature of like people, right? Because like one thing is like having to make sure that people have their tasks done, it could mean that you're like sending 10 emails to the same person, and you know who your key problem people are. So like, from a business standpoint, large organization, you can't control for that. But from a small business standpoint, if somebody is not able to follow through on their deliverables or their tasks or whatever they are a liability.
Mhm.
They need to be replaced, and remove the relationship aspect of it. Like, oh, that's my friend, that's this person. Blah, blah, blah. No, your business needs to be sustainable. Anyone that's stopping, operations from, flowing and being functional is a liability to you. And I think that that's another thing that, entrepreneurs, is because, small business, you have more interpersonal relationships with your team. You
Mhm.
tend to like let a lot of things go, which sounds like what happened with the person that you're saying with the secretary or whatever. He probably has huge rapport with this person.
Yeah,
No,
17, 18 years
yeah, even though
relationship.
they have not taken any time to develop on their skill set, come up with technology, or invest in technology that's going to bring a value add to the business, learn new skill sets, technical skills, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, I would have let that person go along. If somebody pulls out a paper and a pen to do anything, well, I can't say that because I use paper and pen all the time, only because I can write faster than I
Yeah.
can. But all my typed notes turn into all of my written notes turn into type notes afterwards, So like, you have to be able to recognize where it's just not a good fit anymore, and you need to move on. It's no bad blood. It's just, I'm doing what's best for the business.
Yeah, and I think that's the cautionary tale that I would tell business owners is, um, I know, like, when you first start, it may be that, well, I'm doing business with the people I know, right? My friends and family, that's who I'm going to hire. And that's one thing I would caution is,
Mhm.
do you really want to have that relationship? And if it's one of those things like, yo, I know Michelle is like a great operation manager, so I want to hire her for this project. Well, make sure you have a very detailed, what do you call it? Uh, I wouldn't say contract, but like
Like
expectation.
list of responsibilities, like
Yes,
responsibility
what
list. Yeah.
operation
Hmm.
whatever they call them, OP something, whatever. But like, like very detailed, like, hey, this is what the expectation are, this is what your job duties are, this is what I'm expecting of you, and these are the consequences if they are not um dealt with. Or,
Yeah.
and this is also why I always say, if you are a business owner, try to deal with 1099 employees,
Hmm.
especially depending on your state, because it may make it easier to, like, hey, this
It's
is what
not working
it's
out.
not working out. I just hire someone else. There's no,
Yeah.
like, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, you working on project per project or
Yeah.
whatever. And
Right.
it's like, it is done. So there's just so many things that I feel like in expending, um, that people are not taking into consideration. So what would you say, out of everything you said, being organized, making checklists, delegating, having decision makers in your team, knowing what assets you have, the key men risk, like all of those things that we just talked about, what would you say is like the no, absolutely do not pass go, do not collect $100, like, don't do this when it comes to, like, project management?
Um, Let me see. I feel like there's so many things because like even everything that we discussed, we didn't touch on budget, we didn't touch on reporting, and we didn't touch on all those things, but those are all part of managing a project as well. But let me see. I would say, like, in terms of any project, it, I would say my no is bad communication. I've seen what that has done in terms of, if you're not good at communicating, if you're not good at being able to deliver the message to your audience, um you need to bring in someone that is, or develop that skill.
Hmm.
Get past telling people bad news. Like, and that's another thing. Like, I feel like our society is so afraid to tell people bad news. Like, I'm not. Like, I'm that person that if you want to have the uncomfortable conversation, I'm there. I'm gonna hold your hand.
Me too.
Like.
But I almost called you your nickname. But what I would say though, I think that's culture.
Yeah.
I think that's very cultural because I realized like um islanders, like West Indies, Caribbean people, like we're very straightforward, like
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to certain things, right? Whereas Americans are a little bit more to like not hurt your feelings. And I see it with Africans too, like Nigerians, and like they will just let you know, baby, you fat. And then just keep it, you know what I'm saying? It's just a fact. We're not trying to hurt your feelings and stuff like that. So I feel like it's a cultural thing, like whereas the West, um,
Mm-hmm.
Americans, Canadians, like people from the UK, I see more of like, oh well, I don't want to, and I'm not saying like you want to be rude or like, whatever, but it's like, hey, the sky is falling. I'm gonna tell you the sky is falling the best I
Yeah.
can without you freaking out. And then, hey, this is what we're gonna do about it. You know what I mean? And just address that. So I feel like it is that's probably why you're comfortable with it. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, you Haitian, you know the culture. Like, hey, this is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that that's a skill set you have to have as a business owner. You have to be able to have any conversation at any time with anyone, and like remove the emotion from it. Like you don't need to sugarcoat it. If something is going bad, just be able to deliver it like to that person and say, hey, you know what, this is what I need to happen. You know what? Guess what? We're all adults, and I tell people I'm not in the business of managing nobody's feelings. You can do that on your own, do that on your time, because I don't need you to manage mine. So like this information needs to be disseminated, and that's what's going to happen.
It's funny that you said that because I was watching a podcast and it's I forgot her name. But anyways, what she was saying was that she only hires male employees or 1099 male employees. And they were like, why is that? And she was explaining how like when she had female employees, it was like she could never just go and say, hey, I don't like this, change it, make it this. It's like you almost always had to tiptoe around like, hey, whatever, because the first time she addressed
Mhm,
it like that, like, they were in their feelings. They felt like, well, you couldn't have said it this way and that. And I think maybe it's a generational thing too, but
mhm,
I'm
mhm.
like, I could understand her viewpoint and to a certain extent kind of agree with her. you know, but it is something that I, I I hate and also have to address the fact that, hey, it is true that unfortunately the um it's hard when you have to like manage the emotional aspect of it, which is what human resource is, right? Like dealing
Yeah,
with the emotional aspect of working with other human beings. But that is something that I
yeah,
calling it what it is, like that is a challenge when it's like, hey, I need you to know this is business and this is not personal. And people always like want to say, oh, like, oh yeah, business don't take care of human aspect and things like that. Yeah, they do, but and at the same time, we are here for a purpose, right? The purpose is not
exactly.
managing our employees' emotion. The purpose is to be the best at whatever
Exactly.
my business is.
Yeah, I mean, like managing people management skills in itself is just like as a project manager, I think that that's probably one of the biggest challenges is because you're not anybody's direct boss, but you need everybody to do something for you, right? So how do you navigate those waters where I need you to do something, but I have no authority over you? you know but that's different. Like that's something, if anybody ever wants to become a project manager, really think about that. How do you get people that you have no authority over to do things for you? But from a business standpoint, it's just like as a manager of people in a business, right? And this is where communication, I say, comes in, and you having great communication skills, it'll help you in those murky waters where it's just like, how do I find balance between delivering the message and not, coming off as cold-hearted or whatever the case may be. And honestly, sometimes some messages have to be just delivered as matter of factly as possible, because you need to make sure that you and that person are aligned of how we move forward.
Yeah, there's no misunderstanding because I'm not trying to take into account your emotions. So therefore I'm like trying to be careful what I say and things like that. And I think that's what she was the point that she was making. Like, I need you to understand what I'm saying and get to the point and not have to worry about the because that is, once you start thinking about what you have to say so much, I think, or not even what, the how you have to say something, I think that makes the delivery become not as efficient as it could be. Yeah.
You're watering down the message with all of,
and the urgency of it, right? Because then if I have to like try to say, hey, if you can, like, no, not if you can, hey, I need this to be done by 2:00 today, and this needs to become priority, right? Versus like, hey, I know you have a lot going on and blah blah blah. Like, okay, we already know that fact. I don't need to bring that up. But I'm in this position because I'm aware of something that you may not be aware of. And that's something like even right now, I in my W-2 job that I've done too, it's like become the voice for the supervisor. It's kind of a weird situation, but like when other people are like, well, I don't understand this and that. Well, you're not in management. That's not your job to understand it. Right. And it's almost like I'm not trying to take the side of the manager, but I've also been in that position to understand, like, it's not for you to understand. It's for you to do what needs to be done, because there are bigger pictures that you're not privy to, that you don't need to be privy to, that things need to be done.
Exactly. And those are necessary conversations. And not everybody's gonna get everything all the time, but you got to make sure that whoever is involved in your business is aligned with your mission, your goals, and I think that that's the most important. Just a little backstory: I did have a business with I had a business many years ago, but my business partner was not aligned with the financial goals of the business.
Oh, girl.
And that led to big issues.
Mm-hmm.
So alignment of vision, alignment of, the direction of where we're going, alignment on what outcomes we're seeking, right, is very, very important. Like mission critical important is aligned. Because if someone is not aligned with the vision of your business, again, liability. So that's why I look at everybody. It's like, are you an asset or are you a liability? And you can do that in your own personal life too. You don't even have to do that in business. It's like, yeah, we family, but it seems like every time I'm around you, something bad is happening.
Exactly.
You are now a liability to me.
No, seriously, there are projects. I'm my husband and I like are we get into a lot of things, but one of the things is real estate, right? And so one of the projects we have to do is to buy land, but like in big amounts. And I have a cousin who we did something with them on a small scale, and love them to pieces, but they tried to like gyp us, right? And it was a couple $100. But then so when the bigger project came and you talking about, purchasing 40 acres of land and like all of those things, I'm like,
character.
I'm not interested. And not because I'm not interested exactly, but your character in small showed me that I can't trust you in big. You know what I mean?
It's all full circle. It is all full circle in terms of just like what you do. It like your personal brand will stick with you. It will stick with you no matter where you go. So like you have to be mindful of that. As
and
you
not to say that people don't change, because we all have grown, we've all have made mistakes, we all have, made like, oh snap, like probably have made the best decision. But at the same time, I'm like, I have to look at the you now. Right. I still have to look at the thing I know as of right now, God is working on all of us. We're all working project um in progress, but at the same time you have to, like, while I am giving you grace, I'm also need to protect myself. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's another thing that I like you said, it's like, oh well, I believe in second chances. Yeah, not with my money.
Exactly. There you go. You have to be able to protect yourself from that level of risk as
Yeah,
well.
you have to prove yourself to me. Just like if I'm hiring someone to interview, them doing the interviews, them trying to, technically they don't prove themselves to you, right? But they have to sell themselves to me, and the
Mhm.
fact that they can deliver the job. Now I have a question for you. Um, a lot of I've seen a lot of new ways of hiring people, and
Mhm.
especially like with bigger projects, where they
Mhm.
give them simple projects to finish, and then whoever, it's almost like a
It's like homework.
competition.
It's like
Huh?
homework for the interview.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
almost like, okay, I need this big project, so I'm going to give you, the five participant or whatever, whoever
Hmm.
gets the most, whatever gets the job, right? They usually do that in internships at the end of the internship. But I
Hmm.
see that a lot more now with like certain job industries and hiring people. Um, what are the pros and cons that you could see with that? Or is there any cons?
Oh no, that I've seen that happen. Like I have a friend that's she's in the tech industry, and every single interview they have like a mini project or whatever. And I tell her, I'm like, listen, do it, but don't do it to the point of completion, because I feel like sometimes they ask people to put these things together on an interview because they just like don't want to hire someone to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's a bit of a risk, but I can put something together structurally without giving you all of the pieces and explain the missing pieces to you when we are talking, when
Yeah.
we're in the interview process or whatever. So I think it's key to be able to understand, like, because you don't want to, like, the outcome of the project to me, or that little task that they give you, is, I don't think that necessarily tells you anything more than the fact that I have this skill set, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's essentially what the purpose of those mini projects or tasks that they give people to do on interviews. Do you have the skills that are required to be able to get the job done that I potentially want to hire you for, right? So, like, I'm not going to give you a perfectly polished, full-fledged document or whatever it is that you need, a presentation or whatever, with all of my
I'm gonna copyright this thing. Listen, okay. I better
like,
not see my
it's gonna
project at the end of your marketing.
it's gonna
And
have
you didn't
my
hire
name
me.
watermarked across every page of it. So like you have to protect yourself in that sense, because I'm like, I remember, like, my friend was working on, I was like, I feel like they're not, like, they just want people to give them samples of work so that they can build on the rest. And it
Mm-hmm.
just seemed so weird, the way the level of instruction that they were given. I was like, that's too much to have to do. You understand? If you have the core skills, you have the core skills.
Yeah.
They don't need a finished
They
product.
wanted free labor.
Exactly. And I was just like, huh.
I don't know about all
um
that, sis. I'm gonna give you like the basics of it,
yeah,
and then put at the end of the project, like, once hired,
exactly.
you will see
We can
more.
finish this off when we can put all the bells and whistles, when I get hired. Because, yeah, just be careful with those kind of things. But yes, I think it's important for people to be able to show that they have the basic skill set that's needed for that job.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense, because I've gone for job interviews, where it's like, oh, the interviews in French, because I'm saying I speak French, so they're like, okay, if you speak French, the interviews in French, and some of them I got, and some of them, one of them, they were like, oh, it's because of your accent.
Huh.
I was like, okay, I mean, you got an accent, like, what? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, you got a Canadian accent. I got a
Yeah.
Haitian French accent. The French person's gonna have a different French accent. If they're from Senegal, they're gonna have a Senegalese French accent. You know what I mean? I was
Exactly.
like,
Yeah. Those
but
are
so you looking for just Canadian French? Like, is that what you like?
Yeah.
I was so pissed. I was like, what the heck?
I think like I believe like the universe makes no mistakes. So when something like that happens, even though to you you're like, oh, this is it's petty, right? Nah, that was the universe, like saying this is not a good fit for you.
Don't go there.
It's not for you. It's what's for you is for you, and what's not for you is not for you, and that's that.
Yeah, but I
There's
just
no,
thought that was so like interesting. Well, because of your accent, I'm like,
yeah, that's just
every person like
weird.
English and in the United States alone, okay, we got so many different accents. Like with
Exactly.
American born citizen. I'm not talking about like me. I'm talking about Atlanta have a like Georgian people have a different accent than New
Yeah,
Yorkers. Like what? So yeah, I was a little
yeah.
in my feelings about that. I was like, I'm gonna tell you about yourself. Let me stop.
That was just weird. I think they were just looking for an excuse for whatever, because
Yeah, I was like, okay, sure, whatever. But yeah, I think it is a I think for me, for small business owners, for certain things, I think you should have a trial run. You know how like and I don't think a lot of uh business small business have like an operational manual
yeah,
that is detailed enough. Now if you're by yourself, then it's fine, but even when you're by yourself, I think there should still be an operational manual, and so that when you are ready to delegate and remove this aspect of yourself from the job, right, and you're trying to whatever, that person coming in already know what the expectations are. So I
mm-hmm.
feel like that's probably one of the first things that before they hire someone, understand what is it that that person should do, because it sometimes it's hard when you're doing it all yourself.
Exactly.
Like, okay, now that I'm no longer going to do this aspect of the job, this aspect of the job that I used to do, what do I want to have this person do, and to what extent and what level do I want them done? And then also, what do girl, so I had hired a cleaning person for one of my Airbnbs, right? Um, and this one of the mistakes I make, which I tell um people to always do, right, and I didn't kind of do it, um because in my mind I'm like, if you're cleaning, my assumption, and again that was my fault,
Mm-hmm.
right? So for those of you listening, you're like, I know you be telling us to do this and you didn't do it. Yes, so I'm being transparent, I didn't do it, but
Yeah,
my assumption is cleaning is cleaning, you know I mean,
yeah.
I thought.
It is, but it isn't.
But it isn't. That's what I'm saying. So sometimes you're thinking this should be common sense. Like, I'm hiring you to clean. I'm expecting dusting, mopping, sweeping, dusting the top of the stuff,
Yeah.
cleaning the stove, stuff like that. Girl, stove wasn't included.
Oh, stove is not included.
The stove was not cleaned. The fridge was not clean. So I'm like, I have a guest that leaves. But I'm like, even if I didn't tell you this, and even if it wasn't included, to me, since you're a business owner and you understand, or you say you understand the aspect of what my business is because you work with other Airbnb people in
Mm,
short-term rental, if a guest leaves and another guest is coming, would it not make sense for the fridge to be completely empty and clean and the stove to be completely clean so that the next guest can come and
yeah.
be comfortable? To me, I feel like that's not something I should have had to say, you know? But then again, these are the things that, like, because you're hiring someone and you're thinking, okay, this should be common sense. I'm hiring you to clean. So therefore, this, no, 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 no. You
Yeah.
need to make it, these are my expectation, in case other people like, oh, you've done this before in this company, or
Mhm.
you work at Wells Fargo, this is what Wells Fargo expect of whatever they call their bankers now, relationship banker or whatever, right? This is what they expect of this banker. Well, guess what? Chase has a completely different expectation of the banker. Yes, they do similar things, but it's a different organization, different vision, and things like that. So therefore, when you're hiring someone, just doesn't mean because they have that experience, like, oh yeah, I've worked in this company for 10 years and I know what this project management entails. Well, you need to understand what my expectations are
Exactly. And
of.
yeah, like that it goes back to communication, documenting, checklist, check organization, having that be organized enough to have your checklist of key, responsibilities and requirements that are needed for someone to deliver on. Had you had a checklist with the cleaning person, she would have known that stove is included before you even do any exchange of business. Like, you're not hired unless you agree that the stove is included. So like that, yeah. And like I said, I think I mentioned earlier, like, um foresight. You knew that you should have probably had conversations about like what the expected outcome, but stopping and making that assumption that she's going to do something just based on the fact that, yeah, of course, common sense, you're cleaning an Airbnb, bathrooms, kitchen, bedrooms, common areas, all should be included, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to get on the roof, but the inside of the house, the inside of the house should be clean and presentable for the next guest or whatever, right? So, but in her mind, no, my service stops here.
Exactly. And that's what I always tell people, make sure like your services are detailed and like what you need, like what you're offering, right? As the business owner to the client, this is what I'm offering. So your services are clear. So they don't have, you're not making an assumption, they're not making an assumption.
Exactly.
Right. And so even though I told people that I was making an assumption that, hey, this is common sense. So common sense is not always common.
Not at all.
And and don't make assumption. And that's, I think, like you said, communication is big, because I feel like a lot of things are, like you said, left unsaid because you assume. And
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing too. I told my friend, like, when he was trying to like help this other gentleman with his Airbnb side of the business that he was launching, and I was going over like things that he has to consider, take into consideration, like for
Mm-hmm.
example, when you're hiring cleaning people, are you gonna do 1099 or W-2? Because that's a huge difference on how you gonna handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Because for that person, they have like campgrounds, right? It's like 5, 6 cabins,
Mm-hmm.
and then the grounds and stuff like that. So I'm like, is it going to be a 1099? Does that person, yeah, they're 1099, but they only contracted to work for you? Or are they going to be working for other campgrounds? Because
Mm-hmm.
then when they're going to have time, you know what I'm saying? Or are you going to do W-2? Because depending on the time frame, now you have to look into your state benefits, insurance,
Yeah.
all of those different things that you don't think about. So these are the things that you stay organized, sit your butt down, get a
Yeah.
checklist, like figure out all of the requirements that needs to be done in order for you to like have your project, whatever size, big or small,
Mm-hmm.
be like very detailed. So one of the things, take the biggest takeaway I'm getting, and I was writing everything down too, because I'm like, let me see if I'm missing something. So I got a lot of this conversation too. And I circled foresight. I wrote foresight and I
Yeah.
circled it. But yeah, it's like having that clear communication and a checklist and understanding like, hey, as part of this, these are all of the things that I need to do and all of this expectation that I need to have in order for me to really expand my project, whether big or small, in the right direction. So
Mm-hmm.
this was an amazing, amazing conversation. I feel like we need to have a different podcast where we delve a lot more into even like budget and reporting. I'm like, that part,
Yeah,
because
that's huge. Like, and that comes in with building, financial literacy skills and stuff like that, right? But that, to me, I feel like that's a whole nother hour's topic because there's so much that's encompassed in that. So it's just like you become a jack of all trades as an entrepreneur, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you first start out, you are the accountant, you are the service provider, you are the customer service representative, you are, these are all the things. You're everything to the business. And then having being able to then, when you're scaling up, being able to like, okay, well, I'm not going to do accounting anymore because I'm going to hire an accountant. Like these are the areas that you have to kind of like look at and to be able to silo them so that you can move on. Yeah, you're gonna have to have oversight over your business, but learning those key skills when you first start, before you even start any business, I think having financial literacy is very
Oh
important.
yeah. And
Very.
and
Hmm.
girl, we could talk about this for such a long time because financial literacy, um, even like with basic budgeting, like I
Hmm.
thought again, this is one of those things where you're like, duh, it makes sense, it's basic, and it's like, oh, to you. Like there's
Yeah.
so many people who like don't understand what a basic budget is and how to manage that. And then you want to launch a business. If you cannot control your W-2 check,
Hmm.
right? If you do not run your regular household, if you run your regular household as a business and you cannot do that, right? I don't know if you can do a side hustle. And there's a difference between having a side hustle and having a business.
Hmm.
There's a huge difference. You could have the side hustle that brings in the money for however long you're doing your little side hustle for. But even with those, a lot of time, the reason why it's a side hustle, not a business, because you have no expense sheet, you have no idea how much you actually made this month. It's like money comes in, money goes out.
Yeah.
I just pay my bills. Like that's okay. But then you can't turn around and sell that business because ain't nobody knows how much the value of the business is. Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So
There's no structure there. Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I do. Like, there's so much to being like. It's a never ending topic because, like I said, there's always going to be something. So it's just, and that's in business, and you have to be able to be prepared for there always be something. So the more skills, I just not the more skills, but the better you develop on certain skills, the easier it becomes to manage your business and to run your business. But like I said, I think it all begins and ends if you're working with other people with communication. Because if the communication ain't there, nothing else works out. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that. So that's that.
Having to set up the proper expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And even
Exactly.
in relationship too, I tell my friends this, and even my husband have this conversation. It's like a lot of times what causes rift, and whether it's a romantic relationship or friendship, is like I am not meeting the expectation that I had for you, but I never communicated what my expectations were of you. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like not communicating what my expectations are. And then and I'm sure you would agree with that. It's like inspect what you expect,
Mm-hmm.
not micromanaging. It's
Yeah.
just I just want to make sure you understood what the job was I gave you, that you said you understood. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah. I agree. And that's almost like doing a report. Like, let's take an assessment of where we are and like let's report on what's going on and stuff like that. So it all like managing your personal life and managing a business, a lot of things are hand in hand. It's just how you view them, you know.
Mhm.
And I guess the key difference is that in our personal lives we take emotion into consideration. We
Yeah.
take people's feelings into consideration. In business, you kind of have to like let go of that to a certain extent, you know.
Yeah. To a certain extent,
To a
but
certain
yeah.
extent, you can be cold hearted, but you can't hinge your business on how people feel
Eh,
because feelings
you're
don't.
gonna be broke. You're gonna be broke. Because fear is a huge driver. And like I'm now about to start like small TikTok videos. I was dreading it for the longest. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I just need to start doing that. But um I think like the rest of the month, I'm probably going to talk about fear, because I do feel like whether it's fear of what people think about you, whether it's fear of whatever, it's like that's a huge um, thing of like emotional decision making that are not very detrimental to your business and your life in general, like making decision off of other people's perception of you and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Oh, I mean, I think that's just like a human quality, especially with, our social dynamic now. It's just like all of our lives are out on display because of social media. It's just like we are concerned about, like, does everybody like us? I mean, I'm not, but a lot of people are.
Yeah, and social media is built that way. Like,
Yeah,
you know
it's
what I
built
mean? So it's like if you don't have even your an analytics
yeah.
and stuff like that, like how many people viewed this and how many people like this. So it's like understanding, like you just need to have to look at the numbers. How do I grow the numbers and not personalize it like, oh, not enough people like me or whatever. It's like, okay, take your feelings out of that. It's like, what contents make sense? So let me just make that content that would whatever.
Exactly.
It's challenging in these days, but this was awesome, and I definitely want to invite you again to have.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, no, like this was really really good. Like I told you, like I was like at first I was like, oh man, this yeah I then I'm like, let me just start writing stuff down. But yeah, like I feel like we'll probably will have another conversation on just budgeting and reporting alone, because that's on a personal level and on the business level, that's something that's like really really key and understanding, and I don't think people take the time to do that. And then the ugh, operational aspect of it, like taking it, writing it down, like this is what I do when I have my marketing hat on. This is what I do when I have my sales hat on. This is what I do when I'm have my whatever on. This is what I do. So you can be able to hire properly the person, and you know what skills you're looking for because you took the time to write it down and stuff.
Exactly. There you go. Organization.
Awesome.
Well,
Oh
I'm
my gosh.
so happy to be here. Of course, I'm happy to come back. And
Yes, thank you so much. I know the phone is breaking up, but at least it was toward the end and not the beginning. So I'm really, really happy for that. Thank you so much for you guys for hanging out with us and listening. Remember that anything that you need, you can ask God for. He will instruct you. He will listen and give you the wisdom on what the next steps are. So thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you, Michelle, for gracing our podcast with your presence. And you guys, I will see you next week.